Part 44. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 431. Chapter 431 Mr. Huo is a scapegoat. Brother, if you have something to say, you have something to say. The middle-aged man raised his hands, his face turned pale with fright, fearing that if the other person got excited, he would chop off his head like a carrot. The woman in his arms had already been knocked unconscious, and she was so weak that he couldn't breathe. He wanted to push the woman off, but was afraid of being misunderstood and resisted, so he tried to organize his words. Which road are you from, brother? But when you pass by Zindu, you don't have much money. Don't be afraid, I am the most honest person. First give me 200, no, 500 taels of silver for my brother. You can use it for spending money, but if you don't have enough, come back and get it again. We meet by chance, it's fate. Unfortunately, his mouth was dry as he spoke, and the saber from his neck was still not removed. Just when he thought he was going to die if he encountered a tough situation today, several men in black who were checking around came out. One of them reported in a low voice, "Master, there is no one in the other rooms." "Okay, go and guard the courtyard gate with 2 people, and keep an eye on what's going on next door." The leading man in black took off his face scarf while giving instructions, and then greeted with a faint smile, "Huo Ming, Mr. Huo, I have long admired your name." The casino owner was even more frightened when he heard his name being called out. If these people take the money and leave without showing their faces or exchanging names, he still has hope of saving his life. Now that these people are taking the initiative to show their faces and name him, they are trying to silence him. After all, dead people cannot speak, so it doesn't matter if they know too much. Huo Ming's lips trembled, but he still tried his best to save himself. "Brother, we have no grievances or grudges. I am also willing to support brother with a sum of money." "Brother, there is really no need." Li Zhensheng took a towel to fan himself, then walked to sit opposite Huo Ming with a smile. The light of the oil lamp shone on his face, finally allowing Huo Ming to see clearly. "Boss Li, what are you?" He even forgot the saber around his neck, which shows how surprised he was. Li Zhensheng is a legendary figure in Zindu. Let's not talk about how prosperous the business in the Wang family was before. It's just that after he recognized his ancestor and returned to the clan, everyone thought he was going to see the Lord of Hell, but they didn't expect that he would recover as before and even go to Quanzhou to find new seeds. Facing this huge achievement, he did not ask for any benefits for himself. Instead, he asked for a royal decree from the emperor and conferred the title of Earl for his younger brother. Furthermore, he also took back the shops that were originally owned by the Wang family, and they are now running prosperously and even more prosperously than before. At least he has tried Cyclamen's new dishes. Huo Minggru couldn't figure it out no matter what. How did he offend Li Zhensheng to the point where he asked Li Zhensheng to bring someone to the door and kill him so arrogantly? Unfortunately, what surprised him even more was what was still behind. Li Lao Er and Li Lao Si also pulled off their face towels and sat down at the table. Huo Ming opened his mouth and could no longer make a sound. Should he feel honored that the 3 brothers from the Li family in Broken Gold Beach teamed up with Anye to take his head? Li Zhensheng stopped scaring him and signaled his brother to remove his saber, saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Huo, our brother came to visit today and we really have something to ask clearly. But Mr. Huo must also know that you have a lot of people here, and we don't want anyone to disturb us, so we acted a little recklessly." Huo Ming subconsciously touched his neck, tried his best to calm down, and asked, "Boss Li, if you have anything to say, feel free to say it. As long as I know, I will tell you everything." "Okay." Li Zhensheng poured a glass of wine by himself and drank it. Half a mouthful, as if he were at home, he asked casually, "Master Huo has a steward named Bao, who is in the casino next door, right?" Huo Ming frowned and replied, Yes, it's hard for me to show up with such a person. He is almost always in charge of the casino, and I only come here occasionally. Why, did this little slave offend Boss Li? Li Zhenchen nodded and smiled a little coldly, of course, and the offending was a little cruel. He is planning to destroy our Li family and Ru Jintan. I thought, even if you beat a dog, it depends on the owner, no matter what. Let me tell Mr. Huo that when you raise a dog in the future, you should carefully screen it. These words didn't sound good, but Huo Ming secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was not the one who offended the Li family, so his life would not be in great danger today. After all, the Li family still has to live in Zindu, and his brother-in-law is the master of Jingzhaoyin Yamen. What's more, the dog he raised bit someone, and beating the dog to death to vent his anger can basically solve the problem. Thinking like this, Huo Ming became more confident in speaking. He took the initiative to pour wine for the three brothers of the Li family and asked, "Boss Li, I don't know how the dog I raised here has offended you. Just say it, as long as it's him it's your fault, I'll give Boss Li an explanation." Li Zhensheng looked at Li Laoer, who told him that he had instructed Zhang Jin to make the guarantee, lured Wei Dejin into gambling, and wanted to drag all the men in the new village into the water. Huo Ming was scolding in his heart. He had already explained that this place was no longer the original capital city, but had become a new capital where gods and immortals from all walks of life gathered. The Huo family used to be a bit prestigious, but now they can only keep their tail between their legs and make money in silence. Unexpectedly, my subordinates still started to engage in fishing. "Boss Li, Uncle Li, don't be angry. This is because the people below are blind. I will ask him to come over and give you a good beating to vent your anger." Huo Ming almost patted his chest and promised, in the future, no one dares to provoke Broken Gold Beach anymore. Unfortunately, Li Zhensheng stopped him and laughed sarcastically. "Second Master Huo misunderstood. If it is such a trivial matter, we three brothers will not have to work together to visit him." Huo Ming subconsciously raised his mind again, then, what Boss Li means. It was difficult for Li Laoer to say personally that he had been tricked and seduced, so Li Zhensheng said, "This person in charge has a cousin named Lu Sanzi, who is a gangster in Qingmu Town. A few days ago, Lu Sanzi, together with several members of the Gong family in Qingmu Town, arrested the old lady of the direct branch of the Gong family, threatened the granddaughter of the Gong family to work for them. In broad daylight, a beauty trap was set up for a hero to save the beauty, so that the granddaughter and grandson of the Gong family were almost killed in front of my second brother. My second brother felt that the incident was too coincidental and became suspicious, so he killed all the granddaughter and grandson of the Gong family. Brought back Broken Gold Beach. We took people to Qingmu Town today. We checked everything and brought back all the relevant people. The granddaughter of the Gong family told us that her mission is to enter our Li family or marry my second brother, my uncle. Or looking for an opportunity to kill our family." Mr. Huo was a little confused when he heard this. He didn't react for a moment and subconsciously asked, "Did Boss Li's family offend someone?" Li Zhensheng resisted rolling his eyes. With such an IQ, it's no wonder that he can only guard a small gambling house and secretly sleep with a widow. Li Laozi listened impatiently and interjected, "Yes, Lu Sanzi has confessed. It was his cousin who instigated him to find women, set up my second brother, and even wanted to kill our whole family. And you are the boss who takes care of things, so it's because you want to harm our Li family that we come to settle the score with you." "No, it's impossible." Huo Ming finally understood, and was so shocked that there were beads of sweat on his forehead. No wonder the Li family put a knife to his neck when they came up. Even if the whole family was plotted against like this, he would go crazy. But he was wronged. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 432. Chapter 432, I Can't Swallow This. Huo Ming quickly waved his hands, with an annoyed look on his face, and explained, Boss Li, we haven't even spoken a few words on weekdays. What did I do to your family? No, it's definitely not me. Li Zhensheng nodded and replied, yes, we also know it's not you, otherwise you would have moved your head right now. After all, it's your dog that bared its teeth at our Li family after listening to other people's words. My dog, has he listened to other people's words? Huo Ming felt as if someone had poured cold water on his head, and his heart felt cold. Now he understood completely. You mean, Guanguo was bribed by others to attack your Li family, and then asked me to take the blame. Yeah, Li Zhensheng shrugged and spread his hands, beat the dog to see its owner. At least we found you and didn't find the person behind you. Speaking of which, I also trust you, so I came to ask you a few questions. Otherwise, I will plot against you secretly. In the end, we will both lose, and the people behind you will burst into laughter. Who is it? Huo Ming gritted his teeth with hatred. This false alarm tonight was actually because I was taking the blame for someone else. Then let's ask about the dog you raised. Li Laozi pointed to the sack in the corner. We caught Lu Sanzi, but he definitely doesn't know better than Bao Guanqi. Huo Ming nodded. He went out with a dark face, walked to the corner and pulled a rope. The rope was probably connected to the gambling den, and soon a human head appeared on the wall. Huo Ming gave a few instructions, and the man disappeared. Soon, there was a knock on the courtyard door. Li Laozi personally led people to guard the door, and Bao Shishi opened the door. As soon as he stepped in, one of his feet was covered and he was dragged directly into the house. Bao Guanqi was so frightened that he was forced to kneel on the ground, his eyes rolling around and whimpering. Perhaps he saw two familiar faces, Li Zhensheng and Li Lao'er. His body stiffened for a moment, and his struggle weakened. Li Laozi quickly tied him up and gagged him. Huo Ming couldn't bear it any longer, so he stepped forward and kicked him hard. You bitch, I trust you so much. You are almost always in charge of the casino, but you actually caused me trouble. Put the blame on me. I'll beat you to death if you don't see me. You eat everything inside and out. Okay, Mr. Huo, Li Zhensheng stopped him. The man who did not want to be named Bao was beaten to death, which delayed the official business. Let's first ask who the person behind him is, Li Lao'er also said. He stepped forward and crouched down to pull Bao Shi's hair. Li Laozi even poured the unconscious Lu Sanzi out of the sack and piled it next to the manager like a pile of garbage. Don't even think about lying to get away, you must tell the truth, otherwise, you will definitely suffer a lot tonight. Bao Guanqi's eyes flashed for a moment, but he gritted his teeth, obviously wanting to fight to the end. Huo Ming saw him like this. He would rather die than betray another master. He was so angry. This is really a dog that has been raised for many years. It was won away by someone with a bone, and it was extremely loyal to the person and turned around to bite him hard. He didn't need Li Laozi to take action, punching, kicking, and even using the hair-pulling move. Bao Guanqi was gagged and whimpered in pain. He struggled to escape, but Li Laozi stepped on one of his ankles and couldn't get away. Instead, one of his legs was so painful that it seemed like it was useless. Huo Ming directly took the thin-necked porcelain bottle, inserted his fingers into it, and broke it off one by one. The sound was extremely clear. The pain was so bad that I peed my pants and finally started to beg for mercy. Li Laozi pulled the thing from his mouth, and he immediately attacked. I say. It was the second housekeeper of MRS Wang Baoyi's house who came to me and asked me to help with some small things, which was to raise fish in Sujintan. I thought that the business in the casino was not good, and it was not fishing anywhere, so I agreed, but as soon as I hooked a fish at Broken Gold Beach, the line was disconnected. I didn't take it seriously, and wanted to continue in the future, but the second housekeeper of the Wang family found me again and asked me to find someone to set up a honey trap. The target was Uncle Zhongshan. I realized that it was not good and let someone use him as a knife. But I got off the ship. It's too late, the Wang family won't let me go, so I. Huo Ming angrily kicked him in the face, giving him a slap in the face, and cursed, "You are afraid that the Wang family will not let you go, but what about me? I can let you go." Bao Guanqi started to cry and hugged Huo Ming's legs. "My boss, for the sake of my 10 years with you, please spare me this time. The Wang family gave me 500 taels, and I am willing to give it to you. Take it out. Master, spare me." Huo Ming shook him off and looked at the three brothers of the Li family. At this moment, he had completely figured it out. The Wang family was targeting Su Jintan and the Li family. He was just unlucky enough to be involved. His only function was to take the blame when things failed. But he still couldn't get rid of it and couldn't stay out of it. Thinking like this, he wanted to beat the boss to death immediately. Li Zhensheng expected this answer, so he pulled Huo Ming to sit down with a smile and said, "Second Master Huo, calm down, it turned out to be a misunderstanding. I said that Second Master is also well known on weekdays and has a good way of making money. How could you do this? But, having said that, the Wang family is a bit wicked. They are planning to find you to take the blame for our family again, but they have no good intentions. Neither the Second Master nor our family can swallow this breath. They still have to smile and show their faces without being beaten. It makes sense to join in, right? So, let's discuss how to resolve this matter. Both the Second Master and our Li family need to vent their anger." Huo Ming held the wine poured by Li Zhensheng in his hand and drank it in one gulp. The taste was a bit complicated. Just now I wanted to chop off his head, but now he is a comrade in the trenches. Things are changing too fast. No wonder the Li family's rise was so sudden and rapid. With Li Zhensheng's ability to change his face, not many people could do it. Li Laozi Guanqi Bao and Lu Sanzi again, gagged them, and threw them out. The four of them sat across from each other and started discussing. Li Zhensheng said, "This matter could have been discussed in the long term, but the death of the old lady of the Gong family may not be discovered at any time. By then, the Gong family's affairs will inevitably cause trouble, and things will be out of control. We might as well take action first and uncover the matter. My second son will take the Gong sisters to the government office to report the case. Jing Ziyin will come forward to find the old lady's body. In this way, several members of the Gong family will definitely go to jail." When the Wang family heard the news, they must have thought that the matter had been exposed, but if we detained Guanqi Bao and Lu Sanzi, they would become suspicious. We don't know whether they are hiding or have been caught by us, so they will be on tenterhooks, always worried that they will appear and take them away. Contribute it yourself. Then what? Huo Ming asked. Li Zhensheng smiled and took a few peanuts and chewed them slowly. Then, I haven't thought about it yet, but from now on we will be in the dark and the Wang family will be in the open. They will be the ones to take the time. Just in case we take revenge. Of course, we need help from Mr. Huo on how to act. After all, Mr. Huo has been operating in this new capital for more than 10 years and is also the overlord. He must have bribed a servant of the Wang family to monitor the current situation of the Wang family for us at all times. It doesn't count. It's difficult. Huo Ming looked strange and asked cautiously, "Are you looking for an opportunity to poison the Wang family to death?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 433. Chapter 433, A sharp saber is the standard equipment of a good man. Li Zhensheng waved his hand and said, Master Huo is too worried. Our Li family are good people and would never do such evil things. Huo Ming glanced at Li Laoxi's saber. Even if he was drinking and eating vegetables, the sword was always placed where Li Laoxi could reach it with his hand. And just now the knife was placed on his neck. If the Li family are good people, then is the sharp saber the standard equipment for good people. But he did not dare to ask any more questions and responded, Okay, I will take care of this matter. I will go find my brother-in-law in a moment and make arrangements for the Gong family. As for the Wang family, Li Zhensheng took over the conversation and said, You don't have to worry about the Wang family. We have bribed people and our family will arrange for people to contact them. Okay, Huo Ming agreed. At this point, the matter is settled. Huo Ming sent everyone in the Li family out, and Li Laoxi seemed to be chatting casually and said, Recently, the dock camp is recruiting troops. Countless Tianwu men are willing to serve as soldiers and follow the Marquis to kill Jiangbei and regain the lost territory. I think that second Master Huo is so generous and righteous that he is very suitable for making contributions in the army. I wonder if second Master is interested? I am in charge of this matter now. If I add something casually when the time comes, second Master will be able to enter the camp immediately. If second Master is I also want to bring a few brothers from the clan, it won't be difficult. When Huo Ming heard that his legs were weak, he forced a smile on his face and said, Thank you, fourth Master, for thinking about me, but I am the only son in the family, and I have to take care of the elderly and children, so I really can't leave. I can only wait for the army to go out and donate more food and money. Li Laoxi nodded and said, Actually, there is a shortage of food in the army now. It's great that the second Master has such a heart. When the trivial matters at home are finished, I will talk to the Marquis and maybe the Marquis will want more. Thank you in person. I don't dare, how can I bother the Marquis with such a trivial matter? Huo Ming quickly handed over his hand and begged for mercy. Tomorrow, I will have someone deliver 1,000 loads of grain to the dock. Then thank you, Mr. Huo. Li Laoxi cupped his hands casually, and then went out carrying the sacks in each hand. In the sack, one contained Bao Guanxi and the other contained Lu Sanzi. Even if both of them are not fat, they still weigh about 120 or 30 pounds, and Li Laoxi is as light as a package. Seeing the Li family walking away and disappearing into the night, Huo Ming's legs softened and he leaned directly against the doorframe. He just really had his thoughts in mind and wanted to stay out of it. Although the Li family arrested Bao Bao, he persisted to the end. Even if he had to peel off his skin, it was better than being caught between the Li family and the Wang family. After all, the Wang family was not that easy to offend. But Li Laoxi actually wanted to put him on the conscription list and send him to Jiangbei to fight with the barbarians. This is simply sending him to death, but it is still upright, and everyone even applauds his death. No, it can't be done. Let's cooperate honestly and deal with the Wang family with all our strength. After all, the Wang family is easier to bully than the barbarians. Of course, the most terrifying thing is the Li family. Of these three brothers, one is as smiling as a tiger, one is as cunning as a fox, and the other is as strong as a bear but not stupid. From the moment you walk in to the moment you go out, the coordination is seamless. He is only one person, and he cannot outwit or defeat such three brothers. What else can he do but surrender? Not to mention that Huo Ming was in the dark night. Why did he blame my mother for not giving him more brothers? He only said that in the early morning of the next day, Li Laoxi was left to guard the city, and Li Zhensheng and Li Lao returned to Sujintan. Bao Guanxi and Lu Sanzi were thrown to a small wooden house in the north of the village to contribute to Dr. Zhang's experiments. Divine Dr. Zhang was so happy that he was gearing up so excitedly that Li Lao kept telling him, Uncle Zhang, these two people will still be useful in the future, so don't kill them. The miracle Dr. Zhang puffed his beard and glared, exclaiming in annoyance, You should leave quickly. I am a miracle doctor, all I can do is save people, how can I possibly kill them? Li Lauer glanced at the rabbit bones piled in the corner of the courtyard and felt helpless. The old man didn't lie, because it was a rabbit that died, not a human. Gong Yunchu and his sister had just finished their meal and had nothing to do, so Grandma he took the sewing basket and started sewing with Gong Yunchu. Gong Yunchu obviously learned it before, and the color of the embroidery threads he chose were so good that even Grandma he was surprised. At this moment, Mr. Li helped Mrs. Li in. Gong Yunchu and his brother quickly saluted. Mrs. Li waved her hand and asked if they had taken medicine. Gong Yunchu replied, "Thank you, madam, for your concern. I have already eaten." Mrs. Li's face did look better when she looked at her, but the child Gong Yu was a little wimpy. Maybe he hadn't gotten over the shock and sadness of his grandma's death. Mrs. Li asked straight to the point, "Our family arrested all of your clan uncles yesterday. Today we plan to take you to Jingzayin to file a lawsuit against your clan uncles for ruthlessly killing people and killing your grandma. Are you willing?" Before Gong Yunchu could speak, Gong Yu had already raised his head excitedly and said, "We are willing, we want to avenge grandma." Gong Yunchu pulled his brother and asked in a low voice, "Old madam, if we were to ask in court why our uncle killed grandma, what would we say?" Li Lauer took over the conversation and said, "Just tell the truth. The tribesmen covet your family's property and houses. They want the land deeds, but your grandma won't give them. So they arrested your grandma and continued to persecute you, but it still didn't work. So, I killed your grandmother, sold your siblings, and seized the family property. I happened to rescue you on the street. You recovered for a few days, and when you were able to talk and go to the ground, you went to the government office to complain." Gong Yunchu listened carefully and guessed that the Li family had other arrangements, so he did not want them to mention others or the Li family in the court. She nodded quickly and responded, "Okay, second master, don't worry, we've written it down." "Well, let's go to the city now." Li Lauer stood up and told his mother, "Don't worry, mother, if things go well, I'll be back in the afternoon." "I know." Mrs. Li nodded and called out to Aunt He, "Old sister, please follow me. I don't trust anyone else." "Okay, don't worry, old lady." And he simply tidied up, carried Gong Yu out, and got into the carriage. Gong Yunchu had just recovered a little and still had no strength to walk, but she gritted her teeth and remained silent. She was sweating profusely after walking for a while inside and outside the courtyard. Dong Mei drove the car, carrying Granny He and Gong Yunchu's sister and brother. In the other car, Yashin drove Li Zhensheng and Li Lauer. Two carriages left Broken Gold Beach one after another and headed straight for the city. Old Mrs. Li was worried and stood at the door and looked around for a long time. Jiyan ran out of the yard, took Grandma's cold hand, and said with a smile, "Grandma, I want to eat roasted sweet potatoes." You really can't keep your mouth open for a moment," Mrs. Li said angrily. As a result, when she saw her granddaughter with a bare head and no hat or coat, she anxiously picked up Jiyan and ran into the house. "Little ancestor, you are going to make Grandma mad to death. It's such a cold day, the wind is blowing. What should I do if I have a headache?" Jiyan hugged Grandma's neck and twisted around proudly, "Grandma, roast sweet potatoes, roast sweet potatoes. I want to roast your sweet potatoes." Old Mrs. Li said she was very powerful, but when she entered the house, she put her granddaughter on the big kong, wrapped her in a quilt, turned around and went to bury the sweet potatoes in the brazier. The capital city in early winter was not much quieter because of the cold wind. The street is still very lively with people coming and going. The shops are open, the vendors are shouting, and the atmosphere is full of market smoke. In a tea house on the roadside, a group of idlers were drinking tea and chatting. Suddenly someone ran in and shouted, "There's a lot of excitement." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 434. Chapter 434, Things are changing. This year we come to the Lee family. What happened? Yes, what's so exciting about it? Tell me about it. Everyone put down their tea bowls and their eyes were filled with light. The cold weather in winter is not as comfortable as spring, summer, and autumn. Apart from walking around at home or going out to drink tea, it is really boring. It suddenly became a bit lively and everyone got interested. It was the first time that the visitor had received so much attention, and became the focus of everyone's eyes, so he danced excitedly and shouted, "Someone killed someone over there in King Mewtown." He wanted to kill people and rob people of their wealth, and he also planned to kill people and silence them. Fortunately, I was met by Uncle Zhongshan and saved. He is currently reviewing a case in the government office. Everyone was confused when they heard this. To kill people and silence them. Seizing family wealth. It sounds very serious indeed, but why did it get mixed up with Uncle Zhongshan? Some people were afraid of making a mistake and asked loudly, "The Zhongshan uncle you are talking about is the one from Sujintan?" Yes, the messenger nodded repeatedly. It's Uncle Lee who personally brought the victim to the government office to complain. Oh, the Lee family is not a meddlesome person. I'm afraid this matter is really fishy. Yeah, I heard that this Uncle Lee doesn't even come to Kyoto except for the imperial gatherings. He is very low-key. Let's go and see what's going on. Let's go together, I'll go too. Everyone was talking about it, then hurriedly threw down the tea money and rushed to the government office together. And the water in front of the government office has been blocked. In the court hall, Mr. Fuyin sat behind the desk, and the master stood beside him. Li Yushen was sitting on a chair on the side of the hall. He was wearing a green gown and a large mantle embroidered with ink and green bamboo, giving him a calm and noble air. Master Fuyin and Master couldn't help but look at it a few more times, feeling emotional in their hearts. The last time we met was when Wang Xingkai sued the Wang family. At that time, Li Yushen was just a farmer who had just escaped from the famine in the north. When he got to the court, he could only kneel. But now, Li Yushen not only has the qualifications to sit firmly in the court, but they even have to pay 3 respects. I have to say that things are changing, and no one should be underestimated. It's so amazing to encounter this thing. Thinking like this, Mr. Fuyin cupped his hands and asked, "Uncle, I brought someone to play the drum today. Is there something wrong?" Li Yushen didn't care. He stood up, saluted, and said with a smile, "Sir, I was walking on the street after the court a few days ago, and a brother and sister were chased and nearly killed. I couldn't see it and saved them. In the past 2 days, the siblings were just getting better. They said that their grandmother had been arrested, their property had been misappropriated, and that she might have been killed. They asked our family for help because they wanted justice. Your Excellency, you know that our family has been murdered before, and we share the same problem. I really couldn't help it, so I helped. I had my servants arrest the people who were chasing the siblings, but as for whether they killed them, man, I need to trouble you to interrogate you." After saying that, he handed over his hands again and sat down. Mr. Fuyin nodded, and everyone in the hall understood. The Li family just couldn't stand it and couldn't stand it. Hence, he did not support the victim, nor did he intend to interfere in the interrogation of the case. But Li Yushen is sitting here, and he also caught the bad guy. In the final analysis, he is helping the sufferer. Master Fuyin nodded and looked at Gong Yunchu and his sister. Gong Yunchu's face was pale, and he was kneeling down. He was teetering and could fall down at any time, but he tried his best to hold on, still supporting his brother with his right hand. My younger brother's leg was broken, his head was bandaged like a rice dumpling, and there was a faint blood on his forehead. Look at the 4 or 5 tied men, each of them tall and tall. Mr. Fuyin frowned, and his heart could not help but be biased towards the Gong siblings. This case was not complicated to begin with. Li Yushen was not the only one who saw the Gong siblings nearly being beaten to death on the street. He just opened his mouth and saved them. Therefore, several men from the Gong family are guilty of hurting others. The only thing I want to ask is where the old lady of the Gong family is and whether she is alive or dead. Several men from the Gong family were hesitating, especially Gong Wu, who was the leader that day, and his words showed a guilty conscience. Hence, Master Fuyan ordered 20 boards to be brought to him at that time. Gong Wu was beaten until he cried like a ghost, and finally confessed that he had imprisoned Mrs. Gong in a wooden house in the mountains. More than a dozen officers immediately rushed to Qingmu town. It was a coincidence that as soon as they left the city, they met the mayor of Qingmu town and others, who escorted a cart over. As soon as he saw the officer, the mayor stopped him and said hurriedly, "Master officer, you came so fast. Something happened in our Qingmu town. The old lady of the Gong family came back to life." "No, she was buried underground and died on the mountain." What he said was a bit confusing, and the officer had a headache after hearing it. He simply checked the body and confirmed that it was the old lady of the Gong family they were looking for, so he escorted the cart back to the government office. The idlers watching the excitement outside the government office shouted and moved out of the way. Everyone was scared, but they couldn't help but raise their feet and look around, wanting to take a few more glances. Soon, Mrs. Gong's body was brought to the court. The old lady, who was originally rich and plump, has turned into a human-shaped firewood stick after half a month. Not to mention the Gong family siblings crying half to death, even outsiders couldn't help but sigh when they saw her. "It's so miserable. Yes, I am starving to death, otherwise I wouldn't be so thin. The Gong family is considered a big family in Qingmu town. I heard that life is very good, but the old lady has ended up like this." Everyone was talking a lot, and when they looked at Gong Wu, they became even more disgusted. How cruel it must be to throw the old lady into a mountain hut and starve to death. Gong Wu was also scared out of his mind. He was afraid that outsiders would see her, so he thought of hiding the old lady there and occasionally giving her food and drink. After all, he wanted to use her to force Gong Yunshu and his sister to obey. But he drank too much that night, went to the city to play again the next day, and slept in the city. On the third day. In short, he usually doesn't even take care of his own mother, so how could he take a tool man into his heart? By the time he remembered it, it was already 7 or 8 days later. Even a fool could guess that the old lady was afraid of death, so he became even more afraid to look at her. Besides, the Gong family siblings have already entered Rujintan, so it's not a big problem for the old lady to live or die. He made countless excuses for himself and never even visited the cabin. Originally I planned to celebrate the new year, but things were completely over, so I looked for an opportunity to bury the old lady. Who would have thought that Gong Yunshu and his sister had regretted their actions and actually joined the Li family in taking them to court, and the old lady who died of starvation was also brought in. He always felt that the old lady's eyes were still staring at him. He tried his best to find a place to hide, but Huaz was so painful that he couldn't move it, so he collapsed and screamed, "It's not me, Weavua, it's not that I want to torture her to death, I just forgot to give it to her. I really forgot to deliver food." Seeing the rare opportunity, Mr. Fuying quickly asked, "Why did you arrange for the old lady to fake her death, and then secretly lock the old lady in the mountains to starve to death? Isn't this unnecessary?" Gongwu quickly explained, "No, I didn't want him to die, it was Lu Sanzi. Lu Sanzi asked Yunshu to seduce Uncle Li and promised me 500 taels of silver. I asked the old lady to fake her death. The Li family saw that the Yunshu siblings were pitiful and helpless, so they kept them at home. I didn't want to kill the old lady, I just wanted to hide them for 2 days, but I forgot about them." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 435. Chapter 435, No one alive, no corpse. Master Fuyin frowned, glanced at the frowning Uncle Li, and asked again, who is Lu Sanzi? Why does he want the Gong family girl to go to the Li family, to attract Uncle Li? As he finished speaking, he changed the word abruptly. After all, the word seduce was too unpleasant to hear. Gongwu hesitated for a moment, and the officers immediately started beating the fire and water sticks. Gongwu stretched out his hand to protect his injured buttocks and confessed happily, Lu Sanzi is Bao Sanzi's cousin at Siji Ruyi gambling house. It was Bao Sanzi who found Lu Sanzi, and Lu Sanzi found me. They said they couldn't see the bumpkins from the Li family getting rich, and they wanted to find someone to trouble the Li family. It would be best if they could marry Uncle Li, and then MRS uncle, so the Li family could just let them be manipulated. Everyone in the hall was afraid to speak out after hearing the news. What kind of guarantee is this? He really has a huge appetite. He actually wants to hold the Li family in his hands. Mr. Fuyin no longer knew how to ask, so he turned to Li Yisheng and said, Uncle, look. Li Yisheng's expression was very bad, as if he had just learned about this, and was half surprised and angry. He asked Gong Yunshu directly, do you know their plans? Gong Yunshu immediately knocked his head to the ground and cried, please tell me, uncle and sir, our Gong family is also a scholarly family. I have been strictly taught since I was a child to distinguish right from wrong. I cannot harm others. I do know their plan, but my grandma was kidnapped by them, and I had to be an accomplice. But my brother and I were almost beaten to death before. It was my uncle who saved us. Everyone in the Earl's mansion treated us well. Great care. How can we ignore our conscience and repay kindness with enmity? I was in a dilemma at first, but I had a dream from my grandma the night before, and I guessed that grandma was killed, so we came to file a complaint. We want to avenge grandma. Gongyu has been holding the old lady, and now he is choking and shouting, we want to avenge grandma. Gongwu hated the two sisters for their misdeeds, but he was even more afraid of being sentenced to a severe sentence. He grabbed his neck and shouted, your old lady is not a good person either. She agreed to send her granddaughter out to seduce men. I am guilty, but the old lady of the Gong family is guilty. My wife is not a good person either. Gongyu couldn't listen to this, so he rushed to beat the person with his broken leg, causing a huge commotion in the court. Mr. Fuyin slapped the exclamation tree heavily and looked at Li Yisheng, uncle, what do you have to say about this matter? Li Yisheng shook his head, since this matter involves our family, I can't participate. Everything depends on your majesty enforcing the law impartially. Mr. Fuyin was very satisfied and said, Gongwu and others killed MRS Gong. There are all the witnesses and physical evidence, and they confessed. Now they are beating 20 big boards and put them in jail. Waiting for the arrest of Lu Sanzi and Bao Guanqi. The trial continues. If the Gong family's old house, fields, and all family property are misappropriated, the Gong family members must return them in full. If any are hidden, they will be convicted of robbery. Gong Yunshu's sister and brother immediately cried and kowtowed, thank you, Mr. Qingtian, thank you, Mr. Qingtian. Finally someone made the decision for them. With their property back, no one will covet it anymore, so they have nothing to fear. Mr. Fuyin waved his hand and said, I will send 2 officers to you back and supervise the clan members' return of property. However, you cannot leave the vicinity of Zindu within 2 months. If a case requires your cooperation, I promise to be there as soon as possible. Yes, thank you sir. Gong Yunshu and his brother thanked them again, and then turned to thank Li Yisheng, but Li Yisheng waved his sleeves to avoid them, obviously not wanting to see the siblings. Although they did not harm the Li family, they rescued people with good intentions, but they rescued people with ulterior motives. Whoever knew this would not be happy. Gongyu was a little frightened, but Gong Yunche's half-lidded eyes were calm. Today, the Li family came forward to help file a complaint. Even the mayor of Qingmu town went across the county and sent grandma's body to the capital government office. The Li family was behind this, and she was truly grateful. But she also knew that the fate between the two siblings and the Li family ended here, and the Li family would not help them anymore. This excitement has come to an end for the time being. The government sent many officers to arrest Lu Sanzi and Bao Guanxi. Unfortunately, Bao Guanxi and Lu Sanzi seem to have disappeared from the world, with no one alive or dead. The government officials searched for 2 days and couldn't find even a single hair. As a result, tea houses and restaurants throughout Xindu were discussing and speculating who was behind the murder of the Li family. Also, Lu Sanzi and Bao Guanxi have never been found. Have they been silenced by the people behind them? Some people also say that perhaps Gongwu deliberately brought out a person behind the scenes in order to escape guilt. But Gongwu can lie, but the Gong family girl can't lie too. So, the key to everything fell on the cousins Bao Guanxi and Lu Sanzi. Since Bao Guanxi was the manager of the Four Seasons Ruyi Casino, the Huo family was also under suspicion. But the Huo family has been keeping a low profile for 2 years. Huo Ming has no other misdeeds except that he likes to sneak around the little widow for a while, and he has no contact with the Li family at all. No matter what he thinks, it can't be him. What's more, the Huo family is also looking for Guanxi Bao. I heard that all the money in the casino that night was stolen by Guanxi Bao. Of course, in such a large new capital, it is impossible for everyone to know the truth, such as the Wang family. The night was dark, but Mrs. Wang's study was brightly lit. Mr. Wang was walking around the room with his hands behind his back, his face sometimes angry, sometimes vicious, and cursing, "Damn things, they are so useless, they can't handle such a small thing. What's the use of raising them? Anyone who has a dog knows how to look after the house." When old Mrs. Wang heard what his son said became more and more unpleasant, he frowned and said, "Okay, don't worry too much. The only person in our house who has contact with those people is the second housekeeper. He has been sent away a long time ago back home, no one can find you." Third Master Wang reluctantly sat down, but the hand holding the teacup was trembling. His lips were extremely white, and he was as frightened as a sparrow that had no nest in the cold winter. "No, no, Dad. You don't know that the Li family is so calculating. Lu Sanzi and Bao Guanxi must have been arrested by them. They are just waiting for a good opportunity to release them, then bite me out and take me to prison." Mr. Wang felt a little distressed when he saw his son like this. He guessed that because of harboring an assassin last time, his son suffered too much in prison and became mentally ill. He quickly advised, "No, those two people just heard the news and were afraid of being implicated, so they took the money and ran away. We can't find it at home, let alone the government office. To take a step back, even if the government officials come to find you, the second housekeeper is no longer here in our family. It can be said that the second housekeeper makes his own decisions, and he will definitely not implicate you. Don't worry, go back and drink some wine, have a good sleep, and nothing will happen when you wake up tomorrow morning." Mr. Wang's personal attendant also hurriedly stepped forward to help his master and went to the backyard. The third lady was thinking about it, and finally waited until her husband came back. She was about to go up to serve him, but was pushed away by Mr. Wang and went directly to his small study. The third madam was aggrieved and wanted to speak, but the long follower persuaded her, "Madam, the third master seems to have something wrong. It's useless for you to be around now. You should go back and rest. The little people will take good care of you and report anything to you." The third lady also listened to the advice and took the people back. Chang Sui quickly called to the people in the courtyard, "Hurry up and heat the hot water. Bring 2 more quilts. Also, tell the kitchen to turn on the fire quickly, cook more food, and deliver it immediately." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 436. Chapter 436 The Frightened Bird. Sure enough, after giving these instructions, as soon as he entered the study, he saw his master huddled on the bed, wrapped in a quilt, cursing, "Bring me the quilt, you are going to freeze me to death. Also, hurry up and start the meal, I'm hungry, I want to eat." Chang Sui sighed in his heart. Mr. Wang, who used to be so high-spirited and extremely proud, was completely ruined. After being released from prison, things like this often happen. In fact, the master was not hungry or cold at all. He was just frightened. He was afraid that he would be thrown into prison again, without food or water, and would suffer and freeze. For a time, because the master got angry, the whole yard was very busy. It was not until the second watch that the drunk master went to bed and everyone finally calmed down. A rough servant who was sweeping the yard quietly slipped to the back door and handed the gatekeeper a handful of copper coins. The doorkeeper skillfully opened the back door and asked in a low voice, "Gaize, is your mother still ill?" The boy smiled bitterly and shook his head, "I still have a bad cough. I'm worried about it, otherwise I wouldn't be able to run back and check on her. My sister is still young, and I'm afraid she won't be able to take care of my mother. Okay, go early and come back early. Make sure you come back before I change my shift tomorrow morning. Don't let me get scolded." "Don't worry, Auntie, I'll bring you meat buns tomorrow morning." The boy slipped out of the back door and disappeared into the night. On the second day, at 3 o'clock in the morning, Cyclamen slowly began to accept guests. Li Zhensheng also waited for the news he wanted, and he couldn't help but laugh. Li Lauer came from the front with Jiyan in his arms. Seeing his eldest brother smiling strangely, he asked, "Brother, is something wrong?" Li Zhensheng took his niece and led his younger brother into the room where he usually rested. Today is the day when Tao Hongying comes to Xiankile to cook the second table of private dishes. The old lady is worried, so she leaves the house and brings her granddaughter to help her daughter-in-law. Mrs. Li was sitting at the door of the kitchen picking vegetables. When she saw her two sons carrying her granddaughter into the house, she told her, "Don't give Fu Niu or snacks. She just ate a lot and she will have to eat soon. Be careful, feed too much to accumulate food." "I know, Mom," Li Zhensheng responded, but when he entered the room, he opened a snack box for his little niece. "Pick what you like to eat, but don't eat too much. The uncle and the second uncle need to discuss the matter." "Okay, thank you, Uncle." Jiyan sat on the sofa, picked out a piece of water chestnut cake, and ate it in small bites. She picked up the crumbs that fell off with her two fat fingers and put them in her mouth. The cute little appearance of my niece made Li Zhensheng and Li Lauer both laugh. Li Zhensheng poured the tea, explained the situation of Third Master Wang, and finally said with a smile, "Originally, I guessed that something was wrong with him. With his proud temper, he would never use the second housekeeper to come forward for such a matter, because even if he did when he was caught doing bad things, there was nothing he could do about it if others hindered the Wang family. But this time, he was obviously timid. He changed from a proud rooster to a rat in the gutter. So, I asked someone to inquire about it. As expected, he was frightened by what happened last time." Li Lauer squinted his eyes and thought for a moment, then asked, "Brother, do you want to start from here and take revenge?" "Of course, when he has bad intentions, he should be prepared for this. If he plots against me after we have known each other for many years, I may give him 3 points. But now that he wants to plot against you, against Broken Gold Beach, just we must not let him go easily." Li Zhensheng sneered. His eyes flashed fiercely, and he turned to give instructions to his younger brother. You are now an earl, and you have to go to court. It is also the face of our Li family. You don't need to intervene in such matters. I will arrange it, but you must be clear about it from beginning to end. After all, our family's life will get better and better in the future, and more people like Mr. Wang will appear. Our Li family may not take the initiative to provoke others, but whoever dares to covet you must have the ability to chop off their hands and feet. Do you understand? Understood, Li Lao nodded quickly, knowing that his elder brother was teaching him carefully. Okay, let's talk about how to deal with Mr. Wang. Since he's scared out of his wits, maybe we can kill him this time and let him learn a lesson. Li Zhensheng took a sip of tea. I will contact Huoming in the evening. Send the servants to Wang's house to play drums when they have nothing to do. Brother is going to torture him slowly and scare him, Li Lao asked, vaguely understanding his plan. Yes, now we are in the dark and the Wang family is in the open. Li Zhensheng smiled and played with the teacup in his hand, so let's not be in a hurry and take our time. Some small things that don't look like much can be dealt with in a frightened person. In the eyes of people, everything is in danger, and Mr. Wang is now. Frightened bird, Jiyan, who was halfway through the snacks, was fascinated by the news and couldn't help but interjected, causing Li Zhensheng and Li Lao to look over in surprise. Li Zhensheng hugged his niece and said with a smile, "Oh, my Fu Niu is so smart, she is just a frightened bird. Let's not fight or kill him, let him scare himself to death." Jiyan smiled, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, and her eyes were filled with bright little stars. She nodded vigorously, well, uncle is the best." After listening to it for a long time, her admiration for her uncle was as strong as the water of the Yellow River. To this end, she specially offered her remaining half of the snack. Li Zhensheng didn't mind it either. He ate the snack in one bite and looked at his younger brother with a smile. I was worried before that the children at home would be taught to be too kind and honest, but now I'm not afraid anymore. Fu Niu is so smart, 1 is as good as 10. Li Lao was also ashamed. He wanted his eldest brother to break the matter into pieces and explain it clearly. The little niece was nibbling snacks and listening to the excitement, and she understood everything. He was really worse than a child. Li Lao rubbed his niece's hair and said with a smile, "So, if I support it for another 10 years, when Fu Niu grows up, I will be relaxed." "You're worthless," Li Zhensheng glared at his younger brother. "As an uncle, you don't know how to protect your children. Instead, you expect your children to protect you." That's what he said, but he still felt sorry for his younger brother, and sighed. "Eldest brother also knows that our family is from a farmer's family. What you have learned and seen since childhood is incomparable to those children of aristocratic families. I want you to. It is really difficult for you to hold up the lintel of your home. But we have to look forward. Our family is getting better and better. The children haven't grown up yet, so we 4 brothers will have to work harder. You should be a good official, talk less and watch more, and do whatever it takes to bring glory to the family. You go up to it. I will handle matters like this for the Wang family. The 3rd brother is diligent and can take care of their family. The 4th brother must follow the marquis to fight on the battlefield. We brothers work together, it doesn't take much. We have 3 to 5 years, at least. No one in Zindu will dare to bully our Li family anymore." "Brother," Li Lao felt his nose was sore and his heart was filled with panic. He knew that the eldest brother planned to take over all the bad things in the family. Even if something happened in the future and the Li family couldn't solve it, then he would abandon his eldest son. The Li family would still be a good family known to the entire Tianwu family. In other words, just like a gecko cutting off its tail to survive, the eldest brother is willing to be the tail that can be discarded at any time to protect the safety of the family. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 437. Chapter 437 Miss Gong is not a good match. Li Zhensheng raised his hand and patted his younger brother on the shoulder, and said with a smile, "Don't act like this. There are 4 brothers in a family, and there are more than 20 people in the family. How can they all be the good ones? There has to be someone who is the bad one, right? It just so happened that I wasn't at home before something happened. Others would say that the Wang family taught me bad things. Let's let the Wang family take the blame." Li Laoer knew that his eldest brother didn't want him to feel sad, so he quickly put away the sourness in his heart and said, "Don't worry, eldest brother, I will often stay with Mr. Wen from now on, and listen more to the things that happen in the court." "That's right. You don't have to worry about the family. You need to prop up the front of the family first." Li Zhensheng praised his younger brother, then picked up his niece. "Let's go to grandma and see how your mother's banquet is being prepared." With that said, they went out. In the front lobby, there were more and more guests. Smelling the aroma wafting from the kitchen, someone couldn't help but ask, "Are there any new dishes today?" The young man served the tea and responded with a smile, "No, it's Baiwak Siang's private dish. It's the second meal today. The director has brought his family over for dinner. Dong Yuanwei has booked 2 tables in a row." The guest was surprised and said, "This private kitchen must be good, otherwise Dong Yuanwei is such a picky mouth and would not bring his family over to eat it a second time." The young man became more and more proud after hearing this, and responded, "Of course, our chef's ancestors had royal chefs, and he can tailor the menu according to the guests' preferences. For example, today, the old lady of the Dong family likes to eat dumplings, so our chef made dumplings with cucumber and egg fillings, and the kitchen is cooking them. I dare not go near the dumplings because of the deliciousness, for fear that my saliva would turn into a river." The diners all laughed and wanted to talk. People from the Dong family had already arrived. The director asked the family members, old and young, to go upstairs first, and then greeted everyone. Someone asked, "Excellent director, you have come here to eat twice in a row. Is this private kitchen really so good?" "Of course," Dong Yuanwei nodded and said with a smile, "not only is the food delicious, but you don't know, this box is called Baiwak Siang, and there are famous flowers in it. I'm not afraid of everyone laughing at me. Last night I was thinking about what kind of flowers I could get today, and I didn't sleep well all night." Before he could finish his words, the youngest son of the family had already run down and shouted, "Dad, there is a bonsai with golden plums upstairs. Mom asked me to call you." Seriously, Director Dong Hui hurriedly handed over to everyone and ran upstairs quickly. "I really don't know how he can move so flexibly because he is so fat." Everyone downstairs was itching to hear this, but the Dong family came out for a reunion, so they couldn't disturb them. But some of the guests in the other private rooms on the 3rd floor, near the water terrace, were familiar with the director, so they took the opportunity to say hello, then went into the potpourri and looked at the pot of golden plums with their own eyes. Shajin is a rare kind of plum blossom. Its flowers are luxuriant and delicate and beautiful. It is most suitable to be made into a potted plant and placed on the desk. It is simply the favorite of all scholars. Today, this pot is placed in the middle of the rotating table, beautiful by itself. There are also 4 pots of ordinary plum trees placed in small pottery jars in the corner of the house and in front of the window. Although it is not as eye-catching as the golden plum blossoms, it still has a subtle fragrance that makes people feel good after smelling it. At this time, the kitchen started to serve food. The juicy and white dumplings, the fragrant roast duck, the bright red cherry meat, the spicy boiled meat slices, the tooth-dropping fish ball and mushroom soup. This made the guests who came to enjoy the flowers regretted that they had not grabbed the second table of private dishes before. "Otherwise, I wouldn't be gulping down my saliva right now, greedy for flowers and food." The director pretended to invite them to stay and have a meal together. Of course they couldn't be so ignorant as to disturb the family reunion. So they said goodbye politely, then went out to catch the boy, and began to order private dishes. In the back kitchen, Tao Hongying had just finished serving the last dish. She wiped the sweat beads from her forehead, tidied up briefly and went to find her mother-in-law and daughter. As a result, as soon as she left the house, she saw Jie Huan running to announce the good news. "Fourth aunt, have you ordered 3 more tables of private dining?" "Really?" Tao Hongying smiled happily, "this is great. Of course craftsmen all over the world are looking forward to making more money and supporting their families, but this kind of recognition makes them even happier." Mrs. Li and Jiyan were in the side room, and when they heard this, they both came out. Jiyan hugged her mother's thigh and shouted happily, "My mother is the best, my mother's cooking is the most delicious." Tao Hongying hugged the fat girl and gave her a big kiss on the face. She is the only one in the family who knows best that today's success is at least half due to her daughter. Without the recipes and special ingredients that her daughter secretly gave her, there would be no way to have these novel and delicious dishes. There are also those famous flowers in the box. The housekeeper of the home mansion and Yeshan went around and bought them. Most of them were seedlings that had not bloomed, or some were just seeds. But when it was sent to the Ye family's yard, and then moved out, it looked like it is now in full bloom, which is astonishing to everyone. Maybe it's all my daughter's miraculous ability. My lucky girl is so amazing, mother, I really benefit from you. Tao Hongying sighed and kissed her daughter several more times. Jiyan was shy and nestled on my mother's shoulder, hugging her neck and twisting around. Everyone laughed when they saw it. Mrs. Li patted her granddaughter on the back and scolded her, "My lucky girl has grown up so much that she actually knows how to be shy." Li Lao turned sideways to shield his mother from the cold wind, and suggested, "Mom, there's nothing going on here. How about we go back first?" Li Zhensheng also quickly agreed, "Yes, mother, Jie Huan and I are here." Old Mrs. Li didn't insist and said with a smile, "Okay, let's go back first." Soon, Yeshan drove the carriage to the back door, and the whole family got on it and returned to Sujintan. At this time of year, everyone in Broken Gold Beach has also begun to experience cat winter. Except for the old men in charge of patrols, who were sitting on the wall sheltered from the wind, basking in the sun and chatting, there was no one else outside. After entering the house, Mrs. Li asked Aunt He to take care of Jiyan, wash her hands and change clothes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she entered the second room, pulled her son and asked in a low voice, "Second brother, I have been thinking about asking you these past 2 days, are you planning to marry again, that girl Gong?" Before my mother could finish speaking, Li Lao's face turned red and he waved his hands vigorously. "Mom, you are thinking too much. I have never thought about marrying again. And even if I marry again, I have to find someone of the same age. How can I find that girl Gong? She is not much older than Jiaran." Mrs. Li breathed a sigh of relief, but was still confused and asked, "Since you are not interested in Miss Gong, why do you take care of her in every possible way? We thought you were tempted." Li Lao's face was so hot that he could fry an egg, and he quickly responded, "Mom, Miss Gong's father was also killed while on a study trip, and their family gradually declined because of this. I remembered that my eldest brother had suffered a lot in our family, so I felt sorry for the siblings, so I took more care of them. Besides, I kept the rules and there was nothing wrong with them." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 438. Chapter 438, If you raise a child for 100 years, you will have 99 worries. Okay, Mrs. Li saw that her son was anxious and quickly patted his arm to comfort him. "Mom is overthinking, it's good that you're not tempted, Miss Gong is not a good match. Furthermore, the Gong family is like this, Gong Yu is still young, and no matter where Miss Gong marries, she will always worry about recruiting her younger brother. It's not that our family wants to marry a daughter-in-law but doesn't want her to help her mother-in-law, but Jiaren's mother has taught her a lesson here. We can't fall into the ditch again, can we? Li Laoer nodded and responded, Mom, don't worry. Because of Jiaren's mother, I have suffered the most and I owe a lot to my family. I don't want to marry again for the time being. When I meet the person I like one day, I will definitely tell you. Hey, that's right, Mrs. Li laughed when she heard this, feeling very sorry for her son. At that time, the eldest son went out and never came back. Only the second eldest son helped her to support her at home. The work was hard and she felt even more miserable. I didn't expect that marrying a daughter-in-law would be more difficult than ever. She is also afraid that her son will have a knot in his heart. If he never gets married, he will be lonely for the rest of his life. Now there are many children in the family, and the 4 brothers all live together, making it lively. In the future, each house will be divided into families, and the children will get married separately. It will be pitiful at that time. When she occasionally thought of these things at night, she was so worried that she couldn't sleep. At this moment, she simply spoke. Second brother, you are a good boy. Our family has been grateful to you for so many years. What my mother is looking forward to most is that you can have a good life. When my mother closes her eyes, there will be someone beside you who understands both cold and hot things. So, if you like something, your mother will not stop you. Your mother and your family will be happy. Do you understand? I understand, Li Laoer said with red eyes, knelt down and lay on my mother's knees. Don't worry, mother, I will live a good life and won't let mother worry about it. What nonsense are you talking about? Old Mrs. Li touched her son's hair and scolded, on the day you turned 80, as a mother, I have to follow you and worry as long as I live. You are the flesh that fell from my mother's body. Ah! Li Laoer secretly wiped away his tears. Years of hard work and grievances suddenly disappeared under my mother's touch. The village chief, Uncle Zhao, and others heard that the Li family was back, and they all came over to sit around, thinking about asking about the Gong siblings and how the casino was going. Although the Wang family has not settled it yet, this matter is a fight behind the scenes, and for the time being it has been resolved publicly. So, Li Laoer invited Lu Biatu, Zhang Shenai, and others to come over, intending to explain the matter clearly. There were all trustworthy people in the room at the moment. Li Laoer didn't hide anything, and everyone was heard gnashing their teeth. The village chief slapped his hand on the table, but he forgot that half of his arm was gone. The prosthetic hand carved from wood hit the table and flew out. The good news is leaning next to grandma, secretly eating fruit and listening to the excitement. Suddenly a hand flew up and pressed directly on the fruit. She was so frightened that she couldn't swallow the fruit in her mouth, nor could she cough it out. Her face turned red from holding it in. Old Mrs. Li had quick eyes and quick hands, and slapped her granddaughter on the back. Jiyan finally spit out the fruit in her throat. Everyone was also startled and started shouting. Is Fu Niuer okay? Yes, cough twice more, be careful if the fruit gets stuck in your neck. This is such a big deal, why did it scare the child? Shenzhong Dr. Zhang also stepped forward, checked it carefully, waved his hand and said, it's okay, just take it slow and it'll be fine. Jiyan opened her mouth to speak, and then sprayed out some fruit crumbs from her nose, which made Mrs. Li feel distressed and funny. Let's see if you dare to eat it secretly next time. Good news, sorry, there are no potato chips, no crispy rice, no chocolate, no jelly here. She just ate a piece of fruit to be healthy and hydrated, yet she still had to suffer such ordeal. The village chief put on the prosthetic hand in a few seconds, looked at the good news carefully, and said with a guilty look on his face, I'm so sorry, I scared Fu Niuer, the child doesn't even dare to eat. Old Mrs. Li waved her hand, don't be afraid. If this child changes his habit of gluttony, our whole family will still thank you. Having said that, she still picked up her granddaughter and held her tightly in her arms. It was obvious that she was afraid of scaring her granddaughter again. With this interruption, everyone's anger towards the Wang family subsided somewhat. Li Laoer said directly, Quan Bao and Lu Sanzi have to hide for a while. My eldest brother will take care of the Wang family. Our village is now taking good care of these two people. After the matter is settled, we will send them to Quanzhou with Zhang Jin. Do hard work. Okay, that Zhang Jin is really not a good guy. He even came to see Wei Dajin today. He is really a bully in our village. I wonder if he is causing trouble. The village chief nodded and said, from now on, we can't just control this part of our village. Now, the other 3 villages must also be taken care of. Yes, Lu Biatu also said, after all, this is Funiur's fiefdom. Our village can help them get rich and live a good life together. But they must also be obedient and not cause trouble. Everyone nodded and responded, people like Zhang Jin must be cleaned out. Otherwise, it would be a pity if a good pot of soup is ruined by a piece of mouse droppings. After saying a few more words, everyone was about to disperse. Unexpectedly, Shuiling came in and reported, Old madam, uncle, someone from the Gong family is here. Gong family? Old Mrs. Li frowned, glanced at her son, and said, let them come in. Soon, Gong Yunchu and Gong Yu brought in a woman with a lot of things in her hand. Gong Yunchu's sister and brother directly knelt down and kowtowed, Old madam, uncle, our sister and brother were in trouble earlier. Thank you uncle for rescuing us and thanking your house for taking care of us. We have no way to repay the kindness of saving our lives. Today we specially prepared some small gifts. Please also the old lady and uncle accepted it. After saying that, the siblings kowtowed and stood up to present the things in the mother-in-law's hands. Old Mrs. Li waved her hand to stop her, no need, Miss Gong is a smart person. She should understand that it was you who planned your brother and sister's entry into Broken Gold Beach in the first place. Therefore, there is no need to save our lives. Gong Yuncha blushed and quickly defended, Old madam, we have no choice but to. Mrs. Li didn't want to hear this, so she interrupted her again, there are too many people in this world who have a hard time living, and you are not the only one. Is it possible that anyone who has difficulties can plot against others and save himself? Gong Yunchu was speechless and subconsciously looked at Li Laoer. Seeing his indifferent expression, she lowered her head. When old Mrs. Li saw it, she was even more unhappy and started to chase them away. You calculated that our family came first and confessed last. Now you have got what you wanted. Our family doesn't want to care about you, but we don't want to see you again in the future. Take these thank you gifts away, but our family doesn't want to accept them. However, you must calculate the money spent on food, drink, clothing, and medical treatment for your injuries during your stay here for 3 days. After saying that, she looked at Dr. Zhang, who thought for a while and said, my consultation fee is 10 taels of silver, and the medicine fee is 10 taels of silver, which is enough. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 439. Chapter 439, Some are happy, some are sad. Mrs. Li nodded and responded, eating, drinking, and wearing clothes are also counted as 10 taels, and together they are 30 taels. Miss Gong paid the silver, and our 2 families are settled. From now on, we don't have to say hello when we walk across the street. Old madam. Gong Yunchu was about to kneel down, but was helped up by Granny He. After a few days of getting along, and he advised, girl, you should be obedient. If I forgive you today, if others find out, they will all come to step on the Li family in the future, and just apologize and give some gifts. Then the Li family, it's hard to survive. There are many mistakes once they are made, don't even think about repairing them. Shui Ling spoke quickly and said, Miss Gong, you are also educated, so don't take advantage of me. Gong Yunsha really wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl in. She quickly took out 30 taels of silver notes from her purse and put them on the table beside Mrs. Li. Old Mrs. Li was not polite and handed it to Divine Dr. Zhang, then shouted, see you off. Mammy He and Shui Ling quickly grabbed Gong Yunshu and walked out. Gong Yu was young and was startled, so he also walked out. The woman's eyes were chattering and she wanted to look at Mr. Li, but she was stopped by Mrs. Li sternly. How shameless, get out, let me hear a gossip outside, and your Gong family will never have a good life. The woman was so frightened that she shrank her neck, turned around and ran away. Li Lao also realized that this woman or the Gong family was trying to figure him out. He regretted 10,000 times in his heart. He should not have been soft-hearted before and had taken more care of the Gong family siblings. Although he became an earl, he still subconsciously thought that he was an ordinary farmer and had no consciousness of becoming a popular person. The village chief also sighed, I made a mistake in rescuing people. Yes, Uncle Zhao and the others shook their heads, I will have to remember a lot from now on, so I can't be too kind. Everyone was afraid that Li Lao would be embarrassed, so they sat for a while and then left. In the afternoon, Li Lao-san actually came back from the small town of Luoan and brought Fu Niu a half-man-high wooden horse. The wooden horse is carved vividly and polished smoothly, without a single wooden thorn. There are handles on both sides of the horse's head. You can sit on it and rock back and forth without fear of falling. Ji Yin liked it very much. As soon as she put it on the end of the Kong, she couldn't get off. Taking advantage of this time, Mrs. Li took her son to talk about the recent events at home, so that he could have an idea. They were afraid that outsiders would plot against Luoan, and the family would not be able to take care of it. Li Lao-san was very angry. He stayed far away on weekdays and could not come back often. Every time he got news, the matter was over. How could old Mrs. Li be willing to give up her son like this? She quickly advised, you don't have to worry about your family, you have 2 brothers. Your task is to take care of several children. It is a big deal for them to study. When they become successful, the family will not be afraid of bad people's schemes. I know, Mom, Li Lao-san responded. Thinking of buying the land, he added, Mom, I found suitable fertile land in Luoan. It's 30 acres in total. It's not much, but it's enough for growing vegetables. It's used in the supply shop, but the shop doesn't have any suitable ones. Don't be in a hurry, this is a big deal, just look for it slowly. Mrs. Li comforted her son, you can now be on your own, you can handle these things, Mom believes in you. Li Lao-san scratched the back of his head and was coaxed into laughing by his mother, looking more honest and down to earth. After the mother-in-law discussed the family marriage for a few more times, the 3rd child hurried back to Luoan. Ji Yin hurried to Yes' yard and asked Yeshan to move a basket of vegetables and fruits into the carriage. Ji Yin hugged 3rd uncle and whispered, 3rd uncle, these are for you, 3rd uncle's wife, and your brothers to eat. Li Lao-san knew about his niece's farm and often sent good things over, but he thought it would be better to supply it to his eldest brother's restaurant. Unexpectedly, his little niece left a portion for them. His heart felt sweeter than honey. It's no wonder that the whole family loves this child as much as his eyes, this child is really lovable. Okay, Fu Niu, don't worry, Sanbo will take it home quietly, and I will ask your Sanbo Niang to cook it for your brothers to eat in the evening. 3 uncles are tired, and 3rd uncles also eat. Ji Yin hugged this uncle who was the most inconspicuous, but the most down-to-earth and reliable. Li Lao-san rubbed his little niece's soft hair. He really couldn't bear to leave, but there were still a few boys in Luoan. Old Mrs. Li stepped forward to pick up her granddaughter and said with a smile, okay, don't get tired of it. If you delay any longer, it will get dark. It's time for the family wedding and the academy is on winter vacation. Then we'll come back and stay for a few more days. Okay, listen to me. Li Lao-san smiled and waved to his mother and niece, then jumped on the carriage and rushed back to Luoan. Cyclamen once again became famous in Zindu because of its private kitchen. There is an endless stream of customers who have made reservations, and the queue has been extended to half a year later. Even guests who can't wait for private meals are still willing to come to Zyanki Lai. Because Cyclamen has issued new rules, 2 new dishes will be launched every month. These new dishes are all on the private kitchen menu. In other words, you can get new dishes without ordering private dishes, but you just have to wait a little longer. Just when Tao Hongying reached the third seat, Ji Yi and Lu Yang finally returned with a small fleet. This time, because there was enough ice, the damage was minimal. And the diners of Cyclamen finally remembered that Cyclamen is a restaurant that specializes in seafood. Needless to say, Cyclamen's business is booming because of several ships of seafood. In a blink of an eye, another half-month has passed. The fat boy of the Lu family has finished drinking his full moon wine, and sister-in-law Lu can go out for a walk. Every family in the village has little work, so they occasionally go to the city to stroll around, buy some things, and watch the excitement. Of course, what everyone must go to is Cyclamen. This is Li Zhenzhen's business, which is equivalent to his own territory. The villagers took one look at the excitement in the restaurant and walked home with pride. Some families are happy and some are sad. Everything is going well for the Li family, and they are making money every day. But things were gloomy over the Wang family. There were hundreds of slaves in the front and backyards. They wished they had to carry their legs when walking. They didn't dare to make a sound for fear of upsetting their master. In the study room in the front yard, Mrs. Wang frowned like iron knots and asked the chief, "How is the third child doing there?" Chang Sui half bent and responded cautiously, "Third master still feels cold and wants to eat at any time. He's feeling a little better now. He's walking around in the courtyard and basking in the sun." Mr. Wang sighed and wanted to ask a few more questions. At this time, a porter boy came to report, "Old man, someone from the government office is here again. Let's ask if we have found the second housekeeper in the house." "That's too much." Old Mrs. Wang looked livid, grabbed the tea bowl and smashed it to pieces. "They came to the door the day before yesterday and scared the third child to the state, they actually dare to come today." Chang Sui and the boy didn't dare to breathe. Just when they were wondering whether to persuade them, the courtyard suddenly broke into chaos. "Stop Mr. San quickly, quickly. Don't be afraid, third master, the officials are not here to arrest you." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 440. Chapter 440 Mr. Wang's highlight moment. Mr. Wang quickly got up and opened the door. He saw his beloved son with disheveled hair, wearing only a single piece of clothing and 2 bare legs. He was holding a stick in his hand and waving it desperately, shouting something randomly, "Can't hear clearly at all." Where is the usual pride? He is completely a lunatic. Old Mrs. Wang was shocked and angry, and wanted to yell a few words, but his eyesight turned black, and he fell softly while holding onto the doorframe. "Old man, what's wrong with you? Go get the doctor." Chang Sui and the boys were frightened and became a mess. In this way, everyone relaxed their containment of Third Master Wang, so Third Master Wang stared at his blood-red eyes, took a stick, and forced his way out of the gate, forcing himself to fight his way out. "Let's see who dares to catch me. Who dares to catch me?" He swung the stick hard and hit whoever was in front of him hard. There were not many pedestrians on the street, but when he made such a scene, people came to watch the excitement, and gradually it became crowded. And Mr. Wang was surrounded in the middle, like a monkey, showing off to everyone, his red evil-proof trousers, and 2 long legs. Some people recognized him and couldn't help but exclaimed, "Oh, why is it Mr. Wang?" I also think it's Mr. Wang, but I don't dare to admit it. What kind of crazy disease does Mr. Wang have? I saw him when I was drinking in a restaurant last month. He looked pretty good. Listen to what he said. What do you mean, don't take him to jail? Yes, he is still scolding the Li family. Which Li family? Oh, I remembered that a few days ago, there was a casino steward and gangster who wanted to plot against the Li family and seduce Uncle Li from Hinton. But the woman they were looking for temporarily rebelled and went straight to the court. I heard that the government is arresting these two people, as well as the person behind them, but there is no news. I heard it too. What do you mean, is Mr. Wang the mastermind behind this? Oh, you can't say this, let's just watch the fun. Yes, yes, watch the fun, watch the fun. Everyone stopped talking in time, but everyone was convinced that Mr. Wang was the person behind the plot against the Li family. Who in this new capital doesn't know about the grudges between the Wang family and the Li family? At the beginning, the Wang family was disgraced because of this incident. Now Li Zhenzhen's business is booming, and the Li family's life is prosperous. Everyone who sees it will turn red with envy. From the standpoint of the Wang family, I am afraid that the better the Li family is, the more unhappy they will be. It's normal to make some small moves behind the scenes to cause trouble for the Li family. Mr. Wang was probably tired from playing with the stick and was breathing heavily while leaning on the stick. At this time, the stewards and servants of the Wang family finally came over. They screamed and pushed away the crowd. When they stepped forward to take a look, they were so frightened that half of their lives were lost. So they fought hard and held Mr. Wang down, then carried him back. Mr. Wang vented his anger for a while. The cold wind blew on his bare legs, which made him shiver with cold. He finally came to his senses. But as soon as he saw the people around him pointing and whispering, something exploded in his mind, and he tilted his head and fainted again. In the courtyard of the Wang family, 5 or 6 doctors were invited. The doctors were very busy after taking a look at Mr. Wang's pulse and then checking Mr. Wang's pulse. Finally, they looked at each other with bad expressions. Mrs. Wang and the third wife cried like tears. They are just housewives. Normally, men support the family, and their lives are peaceful and beautiful. But now that all the men have suddenly fallen down, they are completely helpless. Mrs. Wang asked, "Doctor, tell me quickly, what's going on?" The oldest of the doctors stepped forward and said, "Old madam, the old lady's condition is not serious, it's just a sudden attack on the heart. After 2 doses of medicine, he will be much better. But third master's illness should be rooted in the past, and it is a heart disease. We can only prescribe a prescription so that third master can have a good sleep after drinking it. But there is really nothing we can do to cure the heart disease." Heart disease, Mrs. Wang was anxious and wanted to ask more questions. Mrs. Wang had already sat up with support and said, "That's all, don't embarrass the doctor, go ahead and write a prescription. The consultation fee will be doubled. In addition, my third child's condition is, please keep it confidential." "Don't worry, old lady, we all make regular visits and understand the rules," the leading doctor replied. The remaining doctors were also relieved, made repeated promises, and then bowed and left. The little steward led them down, feeling as if he had eaten Coptis chinensis. The old man was afraid of death and didn't know what happened just now, and he wanted to hide the third master's illness. But the third master has been making trouble outside for so long just now, how can there be any secrets in Zindu? Now I am afraid that all the children on the streets know about third master Wang playing with a stick with his bare buttocks. A normally decent person suddenly behaves like this, what else could he be like if he is not crazy? This can't be solved by just a few doctors keeping their mouths shut. However, he couldn't control it. He managed to escape the disaster by sending the doctor on an errand. But he managed to escape, but others could not. Mr. Wang's chief attendant knew that he could not keep it a secret, so he briefly explained what had just happened. But Mrs. Wang is not a fool. No matter how simple it is, he can quickly figure it out clearly. Inevitably, he was so angry that he almost fainted again, but it was his old wife crying on him that managed to keep him awake. Old Mrs. Wang endured the sweetness in his throat and ordered, "Prepare pen and ink, I want to write a letter and ask the eldest and second eldest son to come back. The third eldest son is useless." Old Mrs. Wang fell back on the bed, shouted the sentence unwillingly, and shed tears in the end. At Broken Gold Beach, the entire new capital, which was unaware of the Wang family's commotion, became lively. This time the small fleet brought back a lot of things with little damage, so Li Zhensheng sent a batch back to Broken Gold Beach, the largest number of which were prawns. "Even if this thing is dead, as long as it is wrapped in ice, it will not go bad easily. It is much more convenient to transport than crabs, scallops and abalone. The restaurant has introduced braised shrimps, salt-baked shrimps, garlic-crusted open-back shrimps and other dishes, all of which are very popular." As for Sujintan, the village chief was worried that each family would not be able to eat it and wasted the good food, so he asked Tao Hongying to make it well and share some with each family to taste the freshness. Mrs. Li simply asked someone to invite Mrs. Kui over. The Kui family usually brought a lot of food and supplies. At this time, when the family had good food, how could they leave Mrs. Kui behind? Mrs. Kui arrived, and Mr. Wen naturally arrived soon after. Old Mrs. Li couldn't help but miss the Marquis and Li Yong in the military camp, but it was hard to call them back just because of such a trivial matter. So Li Laozi said, "I'll go get Daong back tomorrow, and I'll just bring some food to Mr. Ho on the way." In this way, the matter is settled. Tao Hongying chose braised prawns among the villagers. This method has a rich flavor and bright red color, and is best eaten with rice. Before the prawns come out of the pot, the children from each family have already brought their bowls and lined up. If the family has a large population, give them a few more, and if the family has a small population, give them a few. In short, make sure there are 2 or 3 per person. In addition, each family also received a roll of dried kelp and a package of dried clam meat. Mrs. Li told the children, "Go back and tell your mother, don't be reluctant to eat it. We have a fleet at home, and we will transport it back in the future. Don't mind the fishy smell. If you eat kelp often, you won't get big neck disease." End of this chapter.